David brings up a really interesting point to me is that, nature is already there. The microorganisms are in the woods degrading the trees that are dying and the organic matter. And so, there is this opportunity to say, hey, how do we leverage nature to, clean up our mistakes and to me, well, and obviously looking from a systems approach is, well, there's no one single solution. It's many solutions that when you combine them together, create something larger than the whole. But yeah, you do have to question whether our overabundance of plastics is too large, too big in magnitude for us to be able to tackle at this point. It's almost like, climate change, there's a certain point of no going back. And so
And
so,
that's a tipping point, right? That's
yeah,
the
but yeah, it's so interesting because if you look at, as a chemist, like this, the microorganism world is fascinating to me because it's, well, it's part chemistry, but also, mainly biology. And it's fascinating to think that microorganisms such as the lactobacillus or a fungi in the woods can both degrade, wood and different things, consume those, but also consume man-made materials, plastics and whatnot that are also somewhat organic in nature, even though they're polymers and things like that. And so having this kind of basic research that yes, these microorganisms can do these things. Well, now the humans have to kind of leverage and develop these for the purpose of doing that. But when you say, okay, we're going to degrade plastics with microorganisms, well, what's the waste product? Is the
yeah,
waste
right.
product more toxic than the actual microplastic particle itself? And
Yeah,
so
this
yeah,
is,
there's
I
a
would,
lot.
are we, is it up to us to leverage, or is it up to us to work with the natural evolution of the microbial species that are adapting to our errors?
Well, it's both. You can't just pick one or the other because, for example, there might be a great bacteria that does, that eats up the plastic, but that's not enough. Not the naturally occurring amounts of these aren't enough to make a dent in the problem. And so humans have to be able to ferment and produce these bacteria on larger scale so that we can hit, the magnitude of the problem.
But then we're going back to one of the original discussions we had about consequences, because we have a
Right.
tendency as a human race, we have a tendency to mass produce everything without thinking about the consequences in the interest of business in the modern world, because it's
Yeah.
all about business solvency, right?
The idea, yeah, the mistakes of ideology can go both ways. If we say, okay, it has to be all natural, we're excluding the opportunity for a solution. But yeah, to your point, if we go the other way and say, hey, we're going to synthesize everything and we're not going to rely on nature, well, that's a mistake too.
It's creating the imbalance that got us here in the first place then.
Right.
Well, I think it also, showcases the one of the fundamental disconnections in science that's currently under a microscope. Actually, if I can put it that way, and under review, is that we're separate from nature. That seems to be something that actually is just not true. It's not true in any
Right.
way whatsoever.
It's
If you
not
look at the
true.
biosphere of Earth, it reminds me even of any cell or an organ or a system that's living. There are toxic things that are always created. The immune system's a great